Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah! We got it! We got it!
52 booklets.
Somebody clip this.
This is cool.
Thank you.
I love this. Dude,
Thank
I love that whole like reaction where they're just like, ah!
Yeah.
Dude, I'm loving that.
The story behind that is that we were coming up with like what's the word, with like punishments if we reach a certain amount of subscriber milestones, and mine is I had to watch the Halo show and review it positively.
Really?
And that is bad. But anyway, welcome to Comics League Live. I am Jared, and today I am here with Rob from Comics Explained. What's up, dude?
What's going on, man?
Good. Not that much. Just hanging out. So the way I normally do these is I ask a couple of icebreakers. So what got you into comic books?
Oh God. X-Men the animated series, man.
Hell yeah.
X-Men the animated series. That's absolutely what did it for me. I don't know. Prior to that point, comics were a thing that I was like, I guess I would really say I wasn't even really aware of. My dad and I used to get together every Saturday morning at like I think it was like 11:30 a.m. and we'd watch X-Men cartoons. And for my dad, it was like reliving like his youth, his childhood. He was more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy, but he kind of read, a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was all brand new. And so it was wildly exciting to learn about all this stuff. It's kind of why I've always been like more of an X-Men stickler than anything else. Eventually he tried to get me into DC. I remember he got me a comic from Batman and the Sovereign Seven. The Sovereign Seven was garbage. Are you familiar with the Sovereign Seven?
Nope. Mm-mm.
Really? Oh my God.
Is that bad?
Dude, okay. So here was the whole idea behind it.
All right.
The whole Sovereign Seven thing was when Chris Claremont left the X-Men. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this without just like lambasting Chris Claremont at DC. So when Chris Claremont left the X-Men, it was like when Jack Kirby left Marvel, right? He goes over to DC Comics. I don't remember the whole motivation behind why he wrote the Sovereign Seven, but like that was the comic that he started writing. And I think it was really like his attempt to kind of like redo the X-Men to a degree without like reworking the entirety of oh my God, what's that really crappy team from DC that's like the X-Men? Grant Morrison has like an amazing run on them.
Doom Patrol?
Doom Patrol, yeah. Without like reworking the whole of Doom Patrol. It was a garbage comic. Try as they might, I think they tried to put Power Girl on the team in order to get people to care about it, and like it didn't work, so they canceled it relatively soon after. And then Claremont came back in the late 90s for Quesada, really is like a favor for Quesada and Bob Harris to kind of do like Extreme X-Men or whatever it was. But yeah, that comic I hated. And then Batman was okay, but like it wasn't the X-Men. So I ultimately ended up shooting down both of those. And then I went from the X-Men, because around that time is when they were doing like all the Scott Lobdell, Fabian Nicieza, like all the crossovers, like the huge crossover events from the 90s. So that's when I was getting into like Age of Apocalypse and the Onslaught saga. And like the benefit of crossovers is like you get introduced to a whole bunch of characters that you might be like casually aware of or know nothing about at all. And then you can just kind of go forward from there. And so it went from like the X-Men expanding out into like Captain America, the Avengers, different things like that. And so that's how I kind of expanded out into comics as a whole. But like the X-Men that'll always be my bread and butter. Like that'll always be the place I call home. So
hell yeah. Yeah, I mean the X-Men were kind of like one of the few books at Marvel where because I'm more of a DC fan, but with the X-Men were pretty much, if I could say which team is closest to the Justice League in terms of power level, it's probably the X-Men.
Think so?
Yeah, because because the way I see it is that the Justice League are more of the gods of DC, and the X-Men are the ones that have the closest to god power. At least I always saw it, because you have like the Phoenix on the squad that can like wipe out universes. For briefly, you kind of had Scarlet Witch, so it's kind of like, in terms of power level, they always seem like the most equivalent, in at least the way I saw it.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know. I think Marvel on the whole has characters that are just in general way more powerful than like the rest of the DC landscape, like in its entirety. There's a few exceptions to that, right? Like Superman, of course, right? I can only think of a handful of characters that could probably overpower a pissed off Superman, where like the mental blocks are gone, you know, and it's like scene from Justice League where he's like fighting Darkseid. It's like, it's time to show you how powerful I really
am. I love that scene, dude.
Like that version of Superman where he's just incensed, right? Like I can't really think of, like, outside of like reality warpers, I can't really think of very many characters at Marvel, like pound for pound, that could like take this guy on. At least in terms of just like guys of like complete physical strength. Like the eternal battle will always be like the Incredible Hulk versus Superman. Like who wins, you know? And like it's like, well, which Hulk are we talking about? Like Heart of the Monster Hulk, Titan Hulk, Worldbreaker Hulk, right? Like the Hulk who spilled his ham sandwich and now he's pissed, right? I mean,
Immortal Hulk, exactly. Immortal Hulk, which by the way was incredible.
That Incredible Hulk was good, man. But you know, when it comes to Al Ewing, I'm starting to realize his writing only ever falls in one of like two categories, right? Either it is really easy to follow and fun, like Defenders Beyond, right? Or his Defenders run, or his Ultimates, or it's just like this extremely visceral, take your brain on a journey, maybe you'll understand it, maybe you won't, type of story like Immortal Hulk. So yeah.
You have a fan here. He says, Comic Explain is my favorite comic book YouTuber. And I got to say, yeah, I kind of agree, because, again, when I got back into comics, it was like 2020, and I was behind on like a lot of stuff. So it was like you and Comic Story, and I would just marathon for until I was caught up on relatively everything. Because with you, I can just put you on the background, then you'll basically read me the story. So it was really easy.
Yeah.
Which, now speaking of that, let me ask you, what inspired you to start the channel?
I was unhappy at my job. It's about that simple.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
The funny thing is, I never had any intention of becoming a YouTuber.
Really?
Yeah, that was never my plan. I never intended to do that. If anything, I wanted to become like a history teacher. Right, just because of a teacher I had in high school named Mr. Helton, who was really cool. Yeah, I always had an affinity for history because it always fascinated me. But like teaching in general was always fun, and like people were always like you would make a really, really good teacher. So I was really unhappy with my job. I took 2 weeks off, and then I made like a bunch of videos. Like the first one I made, I'm pretty sure is Jason Wingard. I don't know. It's been like 12 years. So unless I like actively look it up, I'm not going to remember what my first video was, but I'm pretty sure it was Jason Wingard. And it was just like this static image. It's just like him. And I'm just like, so Jason Wingard is like a really powerful character who will like dominate and destroy your life, you know? And it was a fun video to make, you know, but I think the Scarlet Witch was the first one that actually like blew up with any measure of success. And that's kind of what kicked the channel off, right? Got it on this snowball where it just started growing at a fever pitch. YouTube was so different back then. God, it was such a different place back then. But yeah, I was just really unhappy with my job. Took 2 weeks off, made a couple of videos. One of them popped off. And then I want to say that I stayed at that job for maybe another 6 months to a year before I started to realize that it could be immensely successful. And then I quit.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
But so yeah, with me, it was actually the Snyder Cut of Justice League getting announced, because I was like, I've always wanted to do a podcast, but then I didn't really know what to do it on. Then that got announced, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this now.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has that's kind of the benefit, right? Like everybody has their entry points, right? Like and it's funny because once you start getting into the comic book scene on YouTube, you come across all these people from all these walks of life, right?
Mhm.
Like 90% of people that I talk to are like, I got into the Marvel Cinematic Universe like because of Iron Man. But then you always get like those 4 or 5% who are like, I got into comic books because of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it's just like, bro, like you go way back, right? But like,
Mhm.
you know, it's everybody has their entry points, the things that kind of got them into the comic book scene that sort of, you know, at the very least gave them a starting off point, you know, because I think that that's one of the benefits of the MCU, especially when it came to Iron Man, and kind of the benefit of my channel, although it wasn't really around at that point in time, is people were just like, I really like Iron Man, right? And it's kind of the question like, where do I start with Iron Man, right? It's like the quintessential question on Google and on YouTube, right? If you know where to look, you know, you can find those questions all the time. You know, where to start with Iron Man, where to start with, you know, Batman, where to start with Superman. And while I wouldn't necessarily make a video like that, you know, in the here and now, because I feel like I've kind of done that to death, like with playlists and different things like that. That's like a great video to make if you're starting off on YouTube, right? Like you'll get some traction, you know, at the very least making a video like that. But yeah, everybody has their starting point, and it's fun to watch people get into the comic book scene and to see them experiencing stories for the first time. And sometimes it's entertaining, right? So so like a really good example of this is when Jane Foster became Thor, right? And like there was like all this, I wouldn't really even say like quote unquote all this backlash. It was like 50 people who sounded like 5,000, right? But like there was some backlash.
Plus just Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, and you know, it's that kind of thing. But it was a handful of people making noise, and they sounded like they were bigger than they were. But there was some backlash to it, and I remember looking at all that backlash, and I'm like, that's how I know you're new to comics. Because anybody who's been reading comics for any measure of time will be like, this is a cool story, but like Odin's son will be Thor again in like 3 years. So like, what does it matter? You know,
it's like when they announced that Ms. Marvel was dying, and all the people that actually read comics were like, she's gonna come back.
Yeah, now with her it's a little bit different, because they're making her an X-Man. Now, if the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't exist, I would just be like, okay, so this is like them experimenting. And I don't know whether it's true or not. I assume that G. Willow Wilson did some interview at some point where she probably mentioned this, but supposedly Miss Marvel was going to be a mutant in the first place. I don't know if that's true. I guess maybe it is. And honestly, it kind of fits, right? Because if you remember when Kamala Khan was first introduced, that was like post-Infinity, right? When like Thanos beats the piss out of Black Bolt, then like Black Bolt detonates the Terrigen bomb, and then like Marvel's just like, Inhumans, everyone, and everybody's like, but we don't care though, and Marvel's like, but Inhumans though, you know. And so it's like, you know, you got that whole thing, but like she popped up around that time. So it would make sense that they were going to like push a character like her that could bring in representation that you wouldn't normally see, that they would like tie her in to Marvel's just terrible attempt to replace like mutants with Inhumans. But like, I mean, right now with her being a part of the X-Men, I mean, that might be a permanent shift, because that's a byproduct of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. So as long as Miss Marvel is a mutant, unless they come along and they're like, actually forget the X-Men theme song that we did, you know, Bruno was wrong, you're actually an Inhuman, you know, like, you know, unless something like that happens, you know, like she's going to be a mutant forevermore in the comics, which is fine. You know, it adds a new dynamic to her character.
Right. That's cool. Now, hey, man, actually, stole my question. What's your favorite comic book?
My favorite comic?
Yeah.
It's hard to pin down, man, because there's so many that are amazing.
So many great ones, I know.
There are so many great ones. See, the thing with me when it comes to comic books, it's not really an issue of like art versus writing, because there's been comic books that have been written really, really well, but the art is trash. And like, I loved the comic book. Right, a really good example of this is anything drawn by like Liam Sharp. Right, that guy's artwork is just an amorphous blob of just like things happening, and like if you can read Egyptian hieroglyphics, you can probably understand what he's drawing. You know, but there's comics like did you ever read Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four?
No, I didn't. I want to.
Oh God. Okay. So I won't spoil it for you, but there's there's a story arc called 3. And the final issue of that story arc is a comic that has no words until you get to the very end.
Oh,
right?
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and then it's like Reed talking to a guy. And that's literally all you get. Right? There's like no other words. But the way it's drawn and the context of it within the confines of like the ending of the previous issue, the comic is beautiful. I mean, it's like it almost brought me to tears reading it because like it's such an emotional comic. And it's just so beautifully done, but there's not a single word in it. And then you go and you read like World's Greatest Superheroes, right? Written by Paul Dini, drawn by Alex Ross. And it's one of those where the writing is minimal, but between the significance of the writing and just the way that Alex Ross draws it, it just speaks more than like a Bendis comic where he won't shut up. So
I know.
Yeah. So it's like, it's, you know, if I had to pin it down, I would probably say a top three. And I would probably say top three comics. Number one is Adam, the Legend of Blue Marvel. Hands down, right? That story arc is my absolute favorite origin story for any comic at all. The second one would probably be Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee's The Sentry, which was phenomenal.
Love that series.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And
so
honestly,
cool.
Honestly, I was a little upset when Bendis brought him in New Avengers. The way he did it was pretty dope, right? Because Bendis' New Avengers run is phenomenal.
Oh, yes.
Amazing. Yes, it is. It is the stuff of legend. So I kind of like the way they brought him in. They never did anything meaningful with him for like 10 or 11 years after that.
Tear him in half during Siege.
Yeah, Siege. But like, I mean, what is it? You get like Civil War. And so like he goes after Wolverine and like Wolverine beats the Sentry. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Wolverine beats the Sentry.
The Sentry is essentially Superman. Well, he's one of the Supermen in Marvel. And I'm like, that ain't happening.
Yeah. And you get like Dark Reign, the List, and like the Punisher overpowers Sentry. I'm like, okay, so this guy is basically just a jobber. Like he's just the punching bag for like whoever the main star of the comic is. But I loved the original Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee, the Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee run. I loved that original comic. And then honestly, for the third one, man, it would be a toss-up between a few of them. The Thor and Hyperion story arc from Time Runs Out, which is amazing when like they're the multiversal Avengers and they die fighting the Beyonders. That was phenomenal. The comic where Black Panther becomes the King of the Dead and Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, that was dope. Obviously the one that everybody knows about when Franklin Richards makes Galactus his hero. But I would probably say, I mean, if I absolutely had to pick one, I'd probably say Batman War on Crime.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd probably pick that one because that one was super solid. So.
My top three is for Marvel, it's House of X, Powers of 10, because I freaking love that book.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
Heck
what a good call. Yes.
Yeah, I was reading this and I'm like, this is the coolest X-Men comic I've ever read.
Isn't it though, dude?
Yes, it's so good.
Dude, it was so dope. Okay, I got to know number two. Know number two.
All right, number two is Siege.
Really?
Because I really like the way they bring in all these, because it's essentially telling three different stories at the same time, and I really like how they weave them together really well. Yeah. Plus, I kind of like Norman Osborn trying to be a good guy, but really is a bad guy behind the scenes. I kind of dig that.
That's fair. It is kind of the conclusion to Dark Reign, right? It like wraps up Dark Reign.
If I gotta, honestly, King in Black.
Really?
King in Black, where he takes Thor's hammer and Silver Surfer's board and makes a giant freaking axe.
So, okay, is this top three comic stories in general or top three Marvel? Because you told me
top
you were
three
a DC
Marvel.
Guy. Okay, I was like, you told me you were a DC guy, and you just betrayed the entirety of the DC fan base.
I know. All right,
hey, DC fans, I'm one of you, but my top three stories are from Marvel.
Yeah, I know, but it's opposite day. But in terms of DC, I'll start with number three. Number three is probably anything from Jeff Johns' Green Lantern. So,
okay, you're gonna hate me, and they're probably gonna burn me at the stake, right? I'm about to piss off the entirety of the comic book YouTube scene.
Oh no!
Right, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern peaked at Sinestro Corps War.
I kind of agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think that's where it peaked.
And honestly, if I have to pick a specific story, it is Sinestro Corps War.
Yeah, I think that was at its best.
Because there was just this one scene. It's because this one scene when like he calls up everyone in Coast City and says, evacuate, there's a big war coming, and everyone starts shining green lights out of their window, and then no one leaves, and then the city is rebranded as the City Without Fear.
Yes, that was so dope because it supercharged him. Yeah, that was
and
so
I'm
dope.
like, that is just so cool.
I mean, there's cool moments with like Saint Walker, where it's like anytime Saint Walker shows up, and it's just like because he always shows up in like the most clutch moments. Do people still say clutch?
I don't know. I don't know, dude.
Okay, so
I'll allow it.
Okay, you'll allow it. Awesome. He always shows up at like the most clutch moments, right? So it's like the Green Lantern just getting like dominated by like Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns, and it's like all hope is lost, you know. And then like and then it's just like Power Ring at like 300% capacity, and it's like, yes, and like Saint Walker's here, and he's like, all will be well, and it's like, yes, the Blue Lanterns, and it's crazy.
My second favorite one is probably All-Star Superman. Because I always tell people, if you want to understand Superman in if you want to read one comic to understand who Superman is, just read All-Star. That's what you got to know.
That is a good choice. I would say that or Peace on Earth.
Okay.
One of those two stories. Yeah, but All-Star is a great choice.
Yeah, with me, actually, number 2 is also a tie with Kingdom Come, because that is the most gorgeous looking DC book of all time.
Isn't it though?
Oh my! Alex Ross understood the assignment with that book. I'm like, oh my gosh!
And there's so much character depth. Like I love the scene when like Wonder Woman goes to Superman and it was like, we need your help, and he's like, no. Right, like humanity made its choice. They chose vigilantism. Let them suffer. And she's like, "You have to stop punishing them." And he's like, "No." And then like things are popping off, and like you're like, "Well, I guess Superman's not coming." And then like he swoops in, right? And it's just like it's oh my god, yes, dude, I love that comic. Yes.
And my number 1 is also a tie between Darkseid War, because I love the idea of like all the different Justice Leaguers becoming gods, like Flash becoming the god of death and so on.
Okay.
And the Superman and Wonder Woman series from the new 52.
Okay, see, that was a ridiculously divisive series when that came out.
It's because here's the thing: you got the group that only wants, and I'm getting to this right here, because you have the group that always is like, no, Superman should only be with Lois Lane. In fact, I put out a video.
Yes.
So this may not have been the best idea, Rob, but I put out a video basically arguing, because longtime viewers of Comics League know that one of my least favorite characters in comics is Lois Lane.
Why? Okay. Before you go, I gotta know, why is Lois Lane your least favorite character?
Because here's why, and it's the comics Lois. I like the movies Lois, and primarily has to do with the way she is written and the way she is in relation to Superman now. Because honestly, let me give you an example. I was reading the first arc of the Warworld saga, the one before he goes where he finds out I have to go to Warworld, which awesome.
Yeah, the Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Yes, I love that. He's a fantastic writer. But she's in danger at one point in the story, and then legit, I was like, so he's going to save her, and I get that that's like their thing, but when there's no stakes, I'm like, I really don't care. That's what really is a writing perspective. I like Lois in the movies and the TV shows more.
Yeah,
because at least they do more with that. So. And the thing is that I put out a video arguing that I phrased it wrong in the title. I said that she was redundant, and the amount of hate I got, people told me to go F myself. And I was like, okay.
I mean, like, look, I'm not one to really lean into the whole, like, you know, stirring the pot and spewing a whole bunch of like, you know, controversy, stuff like that. But like, that stuff sells.
I know, but the reason and the thing is that I always preferred Superman with Wonder Woman, because here's and the series perfectly explains it, because they may seem alike, like they're practically the same, the same in that, but really when you look at it, and that series specifically showed it, and it sold really well. But what was that they both have two different ideas on what it means to be a superhero, and that he's always had to hold a part of himself back, being like Clark and Superman and stuff. She's always used to like being completely open, because at that point, I don't think in the new 52 she was an ambassador. I think she was just Wonder Woman.
I want to say so. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think at the beginning she was, but honestly, it's been, what is it, like 12 years since New 52 came out, so I don't remember exactly.
But and the thing about it is that I just love that series, because you also have that fantastic moment where Batman goes to Superman. He goes, "There's always a reason why. I've always felt relatively comfortable working with you specifically, Clark, and that's because even though you're from another planet, you always see yourself as human." Yeah. Because you were raised by humanity. And I feel like if you want, that's also another comic where I think in that one page, it perfectly summarizes one of the best parts about Superman is that, yeah, he may have all these godlike powers, but he still sees himself as human.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the big gripes, and I remember talking about this with a buddy of mine, Sal, years and years ago. But the biggest issue with the Superman Wonder Woman comic is that it was just too easy, right? Like with Superman and Lois Lane, there's always like, okay, so really good examples. If you remember towards the end of the New 52, when Superman, it probably in one of the most awesome moments of his character, when like his powers were more or less gone, he was just like Captain America level strong, but he wasn't like Superman level strong. He had like
the truth storyline.
Yes, he had like the black shirt with the Superman logo and the jeans, and he was like a biker.
I was not a fan of that.
Dude, he looked dope, but I loved it when like Lois Lane just like dumped his identity out in the world, right? Like that kind of thing. Those stories with her character, where it's not necessarily like she saves the day because like she's like some superwoman type character, but where like she's still has the elements of the damsel in distress, but she can still kind of hold her own. That makes her character interesting to me, and it makes her intriguing to me because like Lois Lane in a lot of ways is like reflected the kind of shift, right, of like women's role in society is going from like the 30s up until now. And Superman, like Mark Waid did a really good interview where he was like, Superman, it kind of reflects every generation as it exists at the time. Right. So like the Superman of right now will be different from the Superman in like 30 years, right? Because he'll reflect society in 30 years, and it's how he looks now is different the way he looked 30 years ago when he had the mullet, right? And he came back in the all black suit.
I love that.
Business in front, right? Party in the back.
When he had the blue suit also.
Oh, Superman Red and Blue, the Man of Energy?
Yeah.
Yes, dude, that was such a stupid idea. I don't know why DC thought of
Well, here's the thing. I still think Grant Morrison in his JLA run actually managed to use that really well.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't remember a whole lot from Grant Morrison's. I remember the significance of his JLA run as it was Return of the Justice League. But I don't remember a whole lot, because you're talking about his 1998 JLA
yeah.
run. Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot from the JLA run. But yeah, no. I always liked Lois Lane and Superman together because Superman's almost this incorruptible, infallible, unbreakable being, with the exception of like a couple instances, which are usually alternate reality stories, Injustice or like Flashpoint or something like that. He's always kind of like as a buddy of mine, Joel, used to put him like, quote unquote, your granddad Superman. Right. But like Lois Lane is a great counterpoint to that. Like, or not really great counterpoint, a great accompaniment to that. Right. So I always kind of like the two of them together. For Superman and Wonder Woman, it felt too easy, right? Like this unbreakable man with the unbreakable woman, and between the two of them, the power couple, and there's nothing they can't do, and it's just like, but I mean, it takes away the stakes. Right. It takes away like the fear that one of them might die. The story where if I remember correctly, there was a story where they fought oh my God, what was his name? General Zod together. Yeah. And that was dope.
Zod and Feora. Yeah, I love that one.
That was a really dope story. But outside of that.
Well, here's the thing. In volume 2, what was kind of cool is that when they did that thing where he was turning into Doomsday and she almost had to kill him, and you saw like she was like almost like, can I actually kill this man? I felt that was kind of cool.
That was like the Doomsday virus, wasn't it? That led into a crossover, didn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, that led to the invasion of Brainiac, as a matter of fact.
Okay, yeah.
Which I was like, okay, it's just the thing is that with Superman and Wonder Woman, I disagree that it's the easy way, because again, it's like particularly that version of Wonder Woman, she was less on the no killing than he was. So there are certain points where you do have tension in that. Plus the fact 99% of Wonder Woman's villains use magic. So there is tension. There is like stakes there if he comes in and like at one point the gods invade and he has to help her. But I can't believe we've never gotten a story in DC where the Greek gods invade and take out the Justice League. I mean,
the closest we got was Injustice. What was it, like year 5?
Yeah, I think it was year 4 or something like that.
4, yeah. It was the off year. It was the year where it was just kind of like, all right, Tom Taylor doesn't really know what to write here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, it's just something that I thought was pretty cool. It was a part of the draw that brought me, because I came in during the New 52 because, again, fresh start. I didn't have to read anything. And then when I was done, it was actually that and Man of Steel, that the movie that really got me in there, because Man of Steel, because I know how you feel about Snyder's movies, but the way I go with that is that, at least to me, because for the longest time before I really understood Superman, I thought he was kind of a wuss. And then I was more of a Batman guy. But then when I finally, because the thing about Man of Steel and then the New 52 Superman is that they showed, okay, so here's this dude that somehow it finally clicked. Here's this dude that has all the power in the world that could burn it down if he wanted to quote Batman and BVS, but he chooses not to, and in fact chooses to be of service. So it was at that point when I was like, okay, I kind of get it now. And then obviously I went back and I read All-Star and Unchained and like Secret Origin stuff, and really fell in love with the character in general.
I mean, that's 100% fair, and it makes perfect sense. But so whenever people ask me, right, they say like, who is it that, or I'm sorry, whenever they're talking about Superman, and they say like, what's the best story to define Superman? Because you made a really good point when you talked about All-Star Superman. But I would actually, I can't talk. I would offer a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
Right. I would say Dan Jurgens, what is it? Superman and Lois Lane, the one that he used to explain how they were bringing Superman in from pre-crisis into, or I'm sorry, from
the Rebirth book, you mean?
Well, not the Rebirth book. There was Frank Thierry, Peter Tomasi Superman Rebirth, and then Dan Jurgens Action Rebirth, which is actually going to be the other 2 stories that I suggested. But there was a mini series that was written that went in that explained how it was that Superman from pre-Flashpoint was in the New 52 universe.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember that. I want to say it was Superman. It was the Adventures of Superman and Lois.
Yes, yeah.
It was something along those lines. But like between those 3 stories, those are the ones that I suggest. And there's a really, really good moment where Superman is talking to his son. And he asked, like Jonathan asked him, like, so why were you wearing all black? And he said, because that reflected where I was in my life at that point in time. Right. And he asked him, he's like asking these questions, like, why don't you just make humanity be good? Right. Like, why don't you just make humanity stop fighting? And he says, because that's not what I'm supposed to do. Like my character, like as a superhero, I'm supposed to lead people, not force them to do what I think that they should do, because I'm not always right. And it was just like the way that they had him relating to his son, it was almost like his son was like a stand-in for us. Right. Like if Superman were real and we could actually talk to Superman and we could ask him these questions, how would he answer? And like that was exactly the way that he was answering those questions. And so, I would definitely say like All-Star Superman is a must read for anybody who wants to get into his character. I would throw in that Superman miniseries and then the Peter Tomasi and Dan Jurgens Superman Action Comics Rebirth run respectively. Like it was amazing. Yeah, it was great.
That's true. I enjoyed that. And let's see, what other questions did I have? Oh yeah, what's your favorite comic book movie?
Oh, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Thank you. Thank you.
Number
There's
one.
a Marvel that is my favorite, because that was before I knew anything about like the Winter Soldier and all that stuff. So to find out S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra the entire time, that blew my mind.
Oh, the funny thing was, as soon as Captain America came out and Bucky Barnes fell off the train, I was like, okay, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And like everybody who was aware of like the whole Winter Soldier thing, they were like, okay, so like it's the winter spoiler. It's basically what we like. He's going to become the Winter Soldier. But that's my number 1 MCU movie. Yeah, far and away.
Mine is actually the Winter Soldier, because it's like because I like the way they made a spy movie, but with Captain America, because that was what was cool about like the Ed Brubaker run, is that it was a spy book, but also had like Captain America, Iron Man occasionally, and like other characters.
Hold on, which book? Are you talking about the movie? Because Iron Man wasn't in the Winter Soldier.
No, I'm saying the Ed Brubaker run. I'm saying about how the Winter Soldier movie kind of reflected how you have like a spy story, but you also bring in these superheroes.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me ask you this, because I got into I was doing a live stream at one point, and I just got into like this feverish debate.
Okay.
With my fans on this, and everybody who's watching, I want to know what you guys think too.
Okay.
Ed Brubaker's Captain America or Nick Spencer's Captain America?
Okay, so
because I'm Nick Spencer, 100%. I'm Nick Spencer. Yeah.
See, I'm one of those people that thought that the whole Secret Empire thing would have been better as an Elseworld story.
No,
I'm
no.
like, see, it was like, no. What the heck? See, here's the thing, because I like the idea sort of Captain America secretly being a Hydra agent this entire time, even though they basically made a symbol of American patriotism a Nazi. So I was like,
basically, yeah.
It never really sat that well with me. The reason why I like Ed Brubaker specifically is because I also really dug the time when Bucky Barnes was Captain America and that whole little redemption story he goes through.
That was really cool. Bucky Barnes, Captain America, that was cool.
Yeah, so I was like, and that's where I wish they had gone with the MCU, because I feel like that redemption story could have been cool to see. I mean, I still like Sam as Captain America, particularly when they brought in the suit in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it's legit page to screen the suit.
Yeah, what was that? That was Rick Remender's Captain America, wasn't it? Because I know he wrote like everything from Dimension Z. Mm-hmm. Up to the Nail, when Steve Rogers lost the super soldier serum. And then I feel like he wrote the first arc of Sam Wilson Captain America.
Yeah.
And then because of like all the backlash to it, he was like, nope, I'm done. And like he walked away. Yeah. And then they brought it back post Secret Wars. Or maybe Rick Remender just left to go do his own thing. I don't remember exactly why he stopped. But
yeah. But most people are saying Nick Spencer. And the funny part is, by the way, I was watching a video from Comic Pop where they were describing the Secret Invasion, Secret Empire. And at the end of it, he was like, he basically was talking about how the ending was pretty obviously changed because good Steve essentially emerges from bad Steve and punches him in the face.
Oh, they absolutely changed that at the 11th hour.
Yeah, I was like, at least it would have been cool if they didn't go with the stereotypical ending of someone showing up and then of the good Steve showing up and then punching evil Steve.
Yeah, like I was at San Diego Comic-Con, like when that thing was wrapping up, and I remember talking to Nick Spencer, and I was like, okay, so like, what was the plan for this? And he was like, oh, the plan is that Secret Invasion was going to lead into like a new Dark Reign. Like a whole, like, because you remember Dark Reign from like back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Norman Osborn's director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you got Hammer and all that kind of stuff. No, he's like, that's what Secret Invasion was Secret Empire was going to be. It was going to be a new Dark Reign, like just a branding initiative that was going to last a few years. And then honestly, I think Marvel should have gone through with it.
Yes, I do too.
Like they should have absolutely done that. But for whatever reason, that makes sense to nobody but them. They ultimately ended up just, getting, cold feet. And then they just like in a side story, right, like in a tie-in, just this guy just vomits up a cosmic cube and it's like the day saved, and like it's like, really, Marvel, like that's what you did here? Like it was so disappointing the way they handled that story, because a Secret Empire Dark Reign branding initiative would have been amazing.
That would have actually been. See, I like the idea of. I like parts of Secret Empire. It's like the superheroes on the run being hunted by their greatest hero who like knows them very well.
Yeah.
I did like also when Captain America unleashes the Hulk on them, and I'm like, oh no.
That's what made the story so good. It's because it's like, if anybody in the superhero community would be the least suspected person to turn on them, it's Cap. Not only that, like I love the way that Nick Spencer handled it, because he's just like, okay, so I'm going to steal the egg of the Chitauri Queen and I'm going to put it on Earth. And then in order to protect the Earth from like any threats, because I know there was a story arc that led into that, which justified why it was that Captain America had S.H.I.E.L.D. create like the giant shield around the Earth. Mm-hmm. And then he immediately co-opted it. And so like you literally had the heavy hitters, right? The most powerful characters in Marvel stuck outside Earth, fighting an endless wave of aliens. with no way to communicate to the surface. And so I love that they kept jumping back and forth, because you have like Carol Danvers. I'm pretty sure you have like Hyperion out there.
Yeah.
Right. And you have like some hardcore guys. And it's like, does anybody read us? Can anybody hear us? You know, and it's just like they're like taking shifts, fighting off just like this endless wave of enemies that are like coming at them. And the whole time that's happening, Captain America is like, so like I've conquered North America. And like I'm setting my sights on the globe. It was such a phenomenal story. And I wish Marvel had the balls to just like go through with the whole Dark Reign initiative. That just would have been, it would just call it like the Age of Hydra, right? And that just would have been amazing.
That would have been dope. The other two parts that I was like iffy with was Frank Castle becoming a Hydra agent, because and I'm like, I get what you're going for. It's not jiving with me. And then them killing Black Widow and then bringing her back as a clone that somehow has all of her like memories and experiences. And I was like, well, that makes no sense.
Yeah. The one thing I did like was the whole idea of like Miles Morales killing Captain America.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was super dope.
And I loved, though, the one thing I will say about Secret Empire is that it made Civil War II make more sense, because they basically tell you that it was Cap the entire time, like manipulating. I was like, okay, that's the one thing I will give it. It somehow improved a really bad story.
You know, and that's one of the things. I don't know if it was actually the case, but I love to use that line of logic and just be like, so Secret Empire made Civil War II better. Like that was really the motivation behind it.
That explains it.
Fix Civil War II. Yeah, it was just to fix that garbage story that Bendis wrote to tie into the movie. Like it was just, it was.
I just love, my favorite part is when Steve is going to meet Miles, and all the Hydra people are like, he's gonna kill you, and he goes, well, yeah, but you see, I was trained to look at all the angles, and while you guys were focused on my dead body, I saw Hydra flags everywhere, so we win. So it doesn't matter what happens to me.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah, I absolutely, I loved Hydra Cap. I loved Hydra Cap so much.
It's a cool concept. I'll give it. See, here's the thing. I like the story. I like the story itself. The story itself is freaking dope.
Yeah.
Because I'm always a fan. Because honestly, another one of my favorite like Superman stories is Injustice in that sense. Because here's why. It makes you appreciate the Superman we have, because you see how bad he can get. But somehow ours is like this super altruistic guy. Same thing with Captain America. You see these people and you're like, it's like with Superman. We have the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But he is the direct refutation of that.
Well, okay, then I'll ask this question of you and the audience, right? Because I used to debate this with the fans all the time whenever I was making the videos on it, right? In Injustice Gods Among Us, were you team Batman or team Superman?
I'm team no one, because both of them are
no. There's no fence sitting here, Jared. Right? There's no. Well, I mean, you know, I'm taking the moral high ground. No. You got to pick a side.
Honestly, because Superman tries to apply it to everyone, I go with Batman, because Superman took it too far to the extreme.
Oh, no, I side with Superman. If humanity was going to get it together, they would have gotten it together. So Superman was just like, I'll make you get it together. And that's it. Yeah, so I 100% sided with Superman. All the fans were calling me fascist. Like, Rob's a fascist.
Yeah, but they realized that yes, Superman took it too far, but the overall argument itself is like, okay, you have a point.
Yeah.
It's like, they won't. So you're right. They won't do it. So I'm going to do it for them. And I'm like,
yeah, man. Jay Heat called you out. Jay Heat Blades. He's like, Jared's trying to have his cake and eat it too. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jay
Absolutely. That's what was happening.
Now, Jay Heat also asked a question. What was worse, Secret Empire or Heroes in Crisis?
I enjoyed Heroes in Crisis.
Me too, dude. See, here's the thing.
It was a great story. What are you even talking about, bro? I take back the props that I gave to you, Jay Heat. You lose your props.
Thank you. My thing about Heroes in Crisis, and I said this when I called it a secret Tom King masterpiece, is that if what happened with Wally West in the past, before the story had published, had not happened, I think it would have been better received. Because overall, Heroes in Crisis is actually pretty dope.
Yeah. Are you talking about them like wiping Wally out and then him
coming back and then sort of like doing that whole it's essentially undoing him in the new 52, bringing him back, kind of sidelining him. And it's just, I'm just like, I get that. But when you look at the story itself, the story is actually really cool.
Yeah, within its own confines, it's really good. I'm really not sure how I feel about the whole like attempt to follow that up, because a lot of people interpreted that with Wally West as like DC trying to character assassinate him. Like DC was like, okay, fine, you guys want Wally West back, we'll bring back Wally West, but you're gonna hate him, right? Like that's how, you know, a lot of people interpreted it that way. And honestly, I don't necessarily fault them for that, because the whole premise behind Tom King's Heroes in Crisis is like Wally West killed the DC universe, right? So we're just gonna have him kill people indiscriminately because he misses his family and he's kind of having his own mini Flashpoint. So I totally understand why people interpreted it that way. What I wasn't really the biggest fan of was like them coming back and saying, actually, he's like the key to the multiverse because Tempest Fudgenaut, whose name is dumb because we named him after food. Like
I know.
Yeah, he's like literally, he just makes me think of like a giant thing of fudge. Like whenever I think of him.
He does kind of, that's true.
But he's like, you're the key to the multiverse, you know, Wally. And then like they never really did anything meaningful with it. And that's okay. That's what kind of disappointed me, because back during the days when you had like Mike Baron, Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, who were handling like Flash in the 90s, especially when you get to like Terminal Velocity and those stories, there was so much emphasis and so much work that was put onto Wally to evolve and grow his character. Now, was I upset that they killed him off in Flashpoint, right? Just kind of removed him and replaced him with a new Wally? Not at all, because honestly, Barry is like the original Flash to me, right? And he always will be.
Me too.
Like, me too. Yeah, like he's the OG Flash, and it always goes that way, right? Like when they killed off Barry Allen during Crisis on Infinite Earths, you go and you read the letters pages that DC was publishing with that comic. Like people were just like ranting and raving and screaming at DC for killing off Barry. And so then you get to like Wally West and you get to Flashpoint, right? And Wally West is gone, and people are just like losing their minds because their Flash is gone. So everybody has like their own version of the superhero that they like. But to me, Barry Allen is like the Flash, right? So I really had no qualms.
Same here.
Yeah, especially with Francis Manipool. Like, dude, his
art is incredible.
It's amazing. It's okay. Were you as excited as I was? And honestly, I wish they'd never canceled the comic. Were you as excited as I was when they announced Trinity?
Oh, hell yes.
Rebirth? Yeah, man.
First off, the Trinity are my 3 favorite superheroes, so them in a book together is dope. Then you're telling me it's art by written in art by Francis Manapul? I am there.
I was so excited. It was a beautiful comic. And I loved like the first arc, it was the pods. Right?
Yeah,
where, like,
people,
the whole pod thing. I loved that whole first arc. Honestly, looking back on it, I feel like Francis Manipool had pitched it as a miniseries, and DC was like, "But what if it's not?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what if it's a whole series?" And like that's what you're going to do now, is you're going to turn it into an ongoing series. And I feel like it kind of stretched out a little too long, and of course they ended up dropping it. But it was a beautiful drawn and beautifully written story. I adored it. Yeah.
I every time I see Manipul's art, it's like mwah, chef's kiss, because his Flash art is because he gets that motion that you need for a Flash artist.
He does,
and I'm like, oh my gosh, and he gets the characters, and that's really important for that.
Yeah.
But so now let me ask you this. Oh, okay, so what's better, Marvel or DC?
I mean, I enjoy Marvel more.
Okay, there you
go. To be honest with you, yeah, I just do.
All right, there you go. But so now what I wanted to say also, my the other story that I think is actually no, I'll ask you this real quick. What's your favorite Crisis? I'm asking this for a reason.
I guess I would say Infinite Crisis, but honestly, I've never been the biggest fan of DC's Crisis events.
Mine is Infinite, partly because of that dope scene with Superboy Prime destroying everyone.
When he's like ripping people's arms and legs off.
Yes, I love that.
Like you.
He's so badass. I
love that, dude. I loved it because if I remember correctly, okay, so that took place before what's his name showed up, who was a Kryptonian that became a Green Lantern. Do you remember him?
Sodom Yacht.
Yeah, Sodom Yacht. That was before I think Sodom Yacht showed up. I know Superboy Prime comes back and fights him later in Sinestro Corps War.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm thinking of something different. I loved it when like Connor Kent showed up.
Yes.
And because like that's the one everybody wanted to see, right? Like was it Metropolis Kid? You know, where she's like, don't call me that. A little bit like Metropolis Kid versus versus Superboy Prime. That's like the fight everybody wanted to see. And yeah, I loved seeing that because Superboy Prime was just like, you're a poor imitation of me. And I'm just going to show you how. And like, he absolutely pummels that kid.
Because he's Superman without any weaknesses. That's the thing.
I mean, basically, yeah. And it's okay. So it's the funniest thing. It wasn't even until I read like the tie-in comic, because I never understood why Superboy Prime was so overpowered, even at the time that I originally read Infinite Crisis. So I remember going back and looking up the reading order for Crisis on Infinite Earths. And they were like, here's the comic where Superboy Prime is visited by Superman, and like you get his whole origin story. And it's like, wait a minute, so you're telling me this is a Superman who, like a Superboy, where his planet Krypton was incinerated, so there was never even any kryptonite in the first place.
Yeah.
And now that he's in an alternate reality, kryptonite does not work for a Superman who's not native to that universe. So yeah, a Superman, and it was kind of funny the way that Jeff Johns handled it, because like the Flashes lock him away in the Speed Force, and then like he escapes. And it's like, Jeff Johns, how did Superboy Prime get out of the Speed Force? And he's just like, and then like, that's all you get. And it's just like,
did. You just did. That's it.
He just did, right? And he looks dope. He's got like the whole suit that like amps his power up and like
the armor. I love that armor.
McFarlane
has an action figure of that. I want it so badly.
Does it? Is it like a 1 of 1, or like? I assume there's more than one.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying he had. They made an action figure of the suit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, essentially that, and I'm like, I want that so badly.
Okay. You just mentioned McFarlane. I'm like, did they make it exclusively for him? Because like McFarlane, he's got the juice to get that kind of thing done, right? So like, I'd be like, damn, that would be dope. But yeah.
But yeah, that is my favorite, because I also like how, well, first off, I like how bloody that story gets with like Superboy Prime or Black Adam pushing Psycho Pirate's mask through his head.
Yeah. Or what was it? At the end, the Joker kills Lex because he wouldn't let him join his team.
I know.
It's like the most petty reason. It's like
that's the most Joker reason, though.
It is. Like, you wouldn't let me join your team. And it's just like, that's your, it's like, you know what, Joker? That makes sense. That makes sense. But there were like some unceremonious things, like they killed off Ted Kord because he discovered Maxwell Lord's plan. So like he just shot him in the face. And I'm just like, really? That's how you kill off Ted Kord? He just gets shot in the face for discovering a plan. And then they gave us Jaime Reyes, which is fine. But I did love the whole like Superman taken over by, what was it? No, it was Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, and he's like, fighting Wonder Woman.
Yeah, like Wonder Woman like beats him within an inch of his life.
I love that.
That was nuts.
And then she has to kill Maxwell Lord. He puts her in that little place.
Dude, speaking of which, man, like, so people ask all the time. Well, I wouldn't say all the time. People used to ask all the time when Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was like first coming out. They were asking about like the best Wonder Woman stories. Did you read the Greg Rucka stories?
I started reading it. I read Hikatea, and I gotta say, I see why you always hype that up. That's awesome when she fights Batman. I love that.
Oh, dude, she beats the crap out of him, man. Like it was amazing. She beat him like he stole from her. But did you ever read the League of One?
It sounds familiar. Oh, wow. Is that the one where she essentially has to fight the entire league because a dragon's gonna invade?
Yeah, she takes out the whole Justice League by herself.
Yeah,
and that was amazing. And like it was stories like that. Hikatea did it to a degree, but like her overpowering and taking out the whole Justice League on her own, I was like,
she could.
This is the Wonder Woman that I know and love. Like
she could.
Yes, because I was like, that's the Wonder Woman that I absolutely adore. Yeah, that was an amazing story.
When Gal Gadot was cast, it's really funny. I wasn't that like hot on her playing Wonder Woman until that scene in BVS when Batman goes, I've known a few women like you. And then she turns to him and smiles and goes, I don't think you've ever known a woman like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know. The only issue I have with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman is she just didn't seem like muscular enough and like
I could see. Well, enough? Depending on who's drawing Wonder Woman, though, she loses muscle tone so often.
That's the counterpoint, right? Like that's the issue. Like you go and you read Wonder Woman in like the 70s and the 80s, and like she's a hoss, right? You read Wonder Woman in the 90s, she's a little more slim and that kind of thing. But you go and you read her in the New 52, and like she's balanced.
Yeah,
right?
So
she's not overly. She doesn't look like a female.
I kind of took it. I was like, okay, that's fine. The other moment that really sold me is that, and they were all fighting Doomsday. She gets knocked back, and then she just smiles.
Yeah,
like,
and just goes like
yeah.
charges again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because like she's enjoying herself in combat, and I'm like, yeah, that's Wonder Woman for you.
That's the Wonder Woman that I was, and I'm glad we got that version, right? Because I was afraid that we're gonna be like, here's like a Wonder Woman, but she's basically Lois Lane with like a couple extra powers, and it's like, no, like I want to see like the die hard, I'll beat you to death and be home in time for cornflakes Wonder Woman. That's what I want to see.
Wonder Woman eating cornflakes. That's an image.
Yes, I want to see the Wonder Woman who took the Justice League apart piece by piece. Like that's the Wonder Woman I want to see. And
plus, you've got the awesome Wonder Woman theme. So I was like, yes.
Yeah, that was pretty dope. Yeah,
because that was the other concern I had, is that I'm like, okay, they have to nail this Wonder Woman theme. Then she shows up and it's like a heavy metal guitar. It's so hardcore, and I was like, yeah, they nailed it.
Yeah, it was pretty solid.
Yeah, so so now let me ask you this. That's the question for me. So I see your Spider-Man profile picture. My question is, what do you think of the Zeb Wells run of Spider-Man that's going on?
I honestly haven't really read a whole lot of it. I'm behind on Zeb Wells Spider-Man.
There's a lot of it that I haven't read it, but I've seen what people have posted, and I'm like, I'm not sure I like this.
Yeah, I think I stopped at what is it, Spider-Man Beyond, where they brought in like the Beyond Corp, and they brought back like Ben Reilly and like the whole thing with him and all that kind of stuff. I think that was I'm pretty sure that's where I stopped. I want to say so, because was it, you got Nick Spencer's run, and then you got that story. Right. Or not Nick Spencer. Yeah. Nick Spencer's run. Then I think you got that story. And then I think you go into Zeb Wells. I'm not 100% sure. So, yeah. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. But the problem with it is that it seems like they're doing the stuff they're doing is just to piss off Spider-Man fans. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. When you look at Spider-Man's publication history, a lot of it has been to piss people off.
I mean, I don't think so. I think like Spider-Man he's always been a fun character, right? Like,
well, that's true, but
it was like really fun. It was a great run.
Well, that's true, but I'm talking about stories like Sins Past or One More Day and all that, and I'm like, okay, guys.
Okay, Jared. So like in the whole of Spider-Man's entire publication history, having been around since like
Clone
Amazing
Saga.
Fantasy 15. Okay, so like 4 story arcs. All right, that's not enough to convince me that like Marvel's making stories to piss off.
I'm just saying that a lot of modern stories seem to be to piss off Spider-Man fans. They sort of hint that, oh, we're gonna put him back with Mary Jane. Psych.
Oh yeah, I mean I can get that to a degree, but I don't know. I mean, okay, so let's address the elephant in the room, Jared. Right? Spider-Man One More Day.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Here's the thing. I loved the way the story was written. I loved how it was handled. It was a very emotional story. I love how it was done. I can see why it pissed off fans, but honestly, the marriage between Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson was never really that relevant to me in the first place. Having said that, the reason for that is because I was never a diehard Spider-Man fan.
Okay.
Right now, for like a buddy of mine, Sal, right, over at Comic Pop, he was incensed. When they wrote that story, he was pissed because he's a hardcore Spider-Man fan, right? I mean, the guy knows more about Spider-Man than probably anybody on the face of the planet, right? Including the people who have been writing him or writing his character all these years. I mean, the guy's knowledge of Spider-Man is crazy in depth. Like it's wild. Like there was one time we were playing like this kind of quiz game, and like he knew the name of the nightclub that Mary Jane Watson ran. And like some era, some era in the yeah, it's crazy how knowledgeable he is about Spider-Man. It's next level.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, his Comic Pop channel is amazing. But yeah, I mean, it never really bothered me all that much because I didn't really have that emotional attachment to Spider-Man. But even now, looking back, like to me, it's just kind of like, I mean, okay, I guess. I mean, I understand why you guys are pissed, but I personally don't. So yeah.
That's true. It's just like at the point that the part that that always like I guess incenses me is that Marvel seems like essentially it's like Marvel puts the hand out and then just takes it back real quick. In other words, they go, "No, we're gonna do this." Psych, and I'm like, commit, do it or do not. Don't like just. Don't play with me, in other words.
Okay, Dan Slott was very guilty of that.
Yes.
Yeah, Dan Slott was very guilty of like, hey guys, you want to see Peter Parker and Mary Jane get back together? Maybe they will. No, they're not. Like he was very big on teasing fans about that. So.
I had there was this funny thing. So I saw Dan Slott tweeted once in a reference to Spider-Verse, the movie, and he goes, "I'm fine with like Peter B. Parker being married to Mary Jane, but I think 616 Peter is fine the way he is." And then everyone's like, "But in the movie, they established that 616 Peter is Peter B. Parker."
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
but as I understand it, though, that's also its own multiverse.
True.
Loki season 1, yeah, that's its own multiverse. So.
True. Which, by the way, that's a fantastic movie right there, including Across the Spider-Verse, and they brought in the old 60s cartoon.
Yeah, man. Like, dude, I still say, because I remember. Okay, so I went to the theater with Benny over at Comic Storian to go see Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. No, not Beyond Spider, Across the Spider-Verse.
Across, yeah.
And honestly, like, by the time that movie came to an end, I got up and I walked out of that theater and I was like, that's probably the best Spider-Man movie that's ever been made.
I agree with you on that.
And that's probably the best comic book superhero movie that's ever been made. I still like Winter Soldier better. Like, it's just nostalgia is why I love that movie better. But objectively, removing emotion from the equation, Across the Spider-Verse is the best comic book movie that I think has ever been made. It was amazing. God, especially that cliffhanger ending.
Yes,
man.
I did not. If ever there was an ending to not see coming, it's that.
It was that, yeah. Because I was sitting in the theater and like they end it, and I was like, no, and like everybody in the theater started laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when they do that. Like, it's ending, it's getting super like exciting, and then they just end it there. I'm like, what?
Yeah, but I mean the soundtrack, just the whole God, it was
the way it looks like you're reading a comic book, but it's actually like a movie. I was like, that's why I've always loved those movies. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I've always liked, in terms of like my favorite movies. It's number one is the Snyder Cut. Number two, in terms of going to Marvel, is Across the Spider-Verse, because that is fantastic. Sure, man, say it. And tell me, please, for the love of God, tell me you didn't just say the Snyder Cut. Yeah, of course I did. Dude, you know what? I'm gonna leave this podcast right now. I would do that to you. No, really, the Snyder Cut? Because here's why. I've always been like a massive fan of the Justice League, going all the way back to the Justice League animated show. I had an occasion where they indirectly saved my life, so I'm like, so the Justice League has always been a team that's been particularly meaningful to me. Hell, that was the first comic book series I really got into in the New 52 was Jeff Johns' Justice League run. Him and Jim Lee, dude. I'm like, yes. So you have like an emotional connection to it. Yeah, and then when I saw the Whedon cut, that was like infuriating. Actually, at first I thought, okay, it wasn't that bad. Then when I saw what was taken out of it, like actually seeing Darkseid, then I started to be upset. Then it's like I told you before, the announcement of the movie is what inspired this entire channel to be created. Then when I saw it, it was like the first movie to treat the Justice League like they're gods amongst men. And that's the way I always saw them to a certain degree. Plus the fact you got the scene when Superman takes the axe to the shoulder and then beats the crap out of Steppenwolf. I was like, oh, okay, this is dope. I mean, yeah, there were some cool moments in there, but I don't know. I felt like Snyder's Cut just had a bunch of just unnecessary, overly cinematic and overly dramatic, but plus it was just so dark, right? Like, I mean, the movies need, like, the tone of the films have to match the characters, right? So, like, sure, a Batman movie can be, like, overly dark because it's Batman. Like, he runs around in the middle of the night like a psychopath, beating up criminals as a furry, right? So, like, sure, right? His furry. Sure, like, his comics can be dark and his comics can be hardcore. Superman's supposed to be hopeful, man. Like, I don't want to watch a Superman movie where I feel like he sits around all day smoking cigarettes, listening to The Cure. Right? I don't want that Superman. But he was hopeful. No, he wasn't at all. There was nothing hopeful about the Man of Steel. He was just like, to me, the Man of Steel, like Scott Snyder's Superman, he was just super angsty, and he's like, I don't know if humanity's worth saving, because like they kind of do some crappy stuff sometimes. No, but I mean, like the tone of his character. It's like I don't know. Like literally, the movie opens up with him just like wanting to be disconnected and removed from the entirety of the like humanity. It opens up with him on a boat out there, removed away from society as a whole. And what happens when someone's in danger? He goes and saves them. Sure, but like he does it in hiding because like it was the philosophy that his dad gave him, right? Like you shouldn't reveal your powers to the world. People won't understand you. Different things like that. Superman is supposed to. the way I took that is like, yeah, in a post 9/11 world, that's exactly how people would treat Superman.
No, that's the difference. Superman is supposed to be timeless, right? The philosophy of Superman is a timeless thing. Superman, like the best way to describe Superman, right? The best way to define how Superman is supposed to be, right? That like something crazy is going on in a city, and like things are popping off, and it feels like it's all like it feels like the world's coming to an end. Right. And then there's just like this crack of thunder and a streak of red. And everybody looks up and they see Superman. And there's kind of like this collective sigh that like the day is saved. Superman is here and he'll save us. That's how it's supposed to be. Right. Like Superman is here for you. Superman will save you. Right. Like that's how he's supposed to feel. Right. Superman is not supposed to feel like I keep my powers hidden because the world won't really understand me. They won't really grasp me. You know, I don't question like that's not how it's that's not how his character is supposed to function.
Well, that's true, but he was supposed. The way I took Man of Steel is that he kind of grows into that role, because at the end of the role, he's Superman. He's like, okay, I'm going to go help people. And fun fact, the next movie was supposed to be Man of Steel 2, where he is that hopeful Superman. It's just, again, Warner Brothers wanted to rush to have their own like MCU, if you will. So that's why I don't necessarily blame Snyder for a lot of the criticisms that the DCEU got, because he was trying to get us to that point with the circumstances he was given.
I mean, okay, sure, I guess, but like you don't launch a movie with like Superman on the scene as a superhero and be like, well, I mean, you know, he's kind of no Superman. It's supposed to be your granddad Superman. Like it's supposed to be like the classic Superman who's got it figured out. Superman's not morally ambiguous. He's not sure what the right thing to do is. He doesn't question, should I hand myself over to General Zod? Because no. That's not what Superman is. And certainly his movies don't feel dark. Right, they're not supposed to feel dark. They're supposed to feel hopeful. Okay. They're supposed to feel, they're supposed to feel bright. You know, I know I've pissed off all the Snyder fans. I don't care.
It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're at least in this channel, we're the group that is like, it's okay to not like his movies, just as long as you're not an a-hole about it, which you're not. So I'm like, okay, we're fine. That's fine.
The hardcore Snyder fans are like, if you don't agree with me, you are wrong, because I am the absolute truth.
My problem with people on the other side, on either side of the argument, is if you don't like these movies, or if you like them, then you're not a real DC fan. And I'm like, well, first off, the way I see it is that if you like anything if you're a fan of anything that has the DC logo on it, you are a DC fan.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it.
Especially if it has the old '90s bullet logo,
which I like that. I like that one. I like that one.
Honestly, I always kind of wish they brought it back for Rebirth, but they never did, and that was disappointing.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that one. But yeah, so the lesson here is agree to disagree. So
yes, like the hardcore Snyder fans, they don't know how to do that.
Yeah, so do the hardcore antis. To be fair, because I've encountered a lot. They have actually accused me of not reading the comics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm like, you can see my background, can't you?
Yeah. Yeah, you bought those off. You bought those at like a thrift store and just threw them up there to give it.
Yeah, I just throw them up there because to make myself look smarter. Really.
Yeah. I've had fans say that to me in a live stream, and it's like, you really don't know.
Wait a second. They've told. Okay, and now I know these people don't have like a grasp of reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let me put it this way: I try and find like value in like anything DC puts out. There are some things like the Birds of Prey movie that's nearly impossible, but I still try and find like cool things to find in each of these movies, because ultimately it's just another interpretation of the characters. It's fine if I don't like it, but there's still, because that's the wonderful thing about these characters is that they've existed for so long, and there have been so many different versions of them that you can have all these different, like you can essentially reinterpret them in different ways, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you know what? I want to address this real quick. So Jack Blicky asked me.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that.
Black Bolt. Okay. Here's the reason why I hate Black Bolt so much, guys.
Okay.
People have been asking that for years, right? They've been saying, like, why do you hate Black Bolt and the Inhumans so much? Why do you hate those guys so much?
I wonder that myself.
Okay, you want to know why?
Why?
Because Black Bolt sucks. That's why.
That's an interesting reason right
the best you're
there.
gonna get because he sucks.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, he's not my favorite character in terms of like those characters. I'm like, it's like, all right. I'm just like, I see. Here's the thing: is that they're redundant. That's the thing. I'm like, the Inhumans were really pushed because they couldn't make X-Men movies. Now that they can, there's no reason to keep them around.
There is, and there never really was. You know, like I never fully understand why Stan Lee and Jack Kirby made the Inhumans back in the day. You know, maybe it was just to have them out there and to, you know, just expand the roster, or whatever. I mean, they introduced them in the Fantastic Four, so obviously they wanted them to succeed on some level, right? It wasn't like there were some characters that appeared in like Marvel Presents or Marvel Premieres or like Marvel 2-in-1 or something, right? You know, it's like they appeared in the most popular comic that Marvel had at that point in time. You know, and ever since then, it's just kind of like, I mean, why are they here? You know, I think a lot of it is because the X-Men weren't overly popular, and I don't think anybody really saw Chris Claremont coming from a mile away.
No,
and like his X-Men run. So you know, when you look at it through that lens, that like the Inhumans were created with the expectation that they would become more popular than the X-Men because the X-Men weren't popular at all. And then suddenly Chris Claremont comes along and he's like, actually, Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga, and then it just elevates the X-Men to just this insane level of popularity. Then it's kind of like, okay, so what's the point of the Inhumans? You know. So
all right, so I gotta ask you, as the hardcore X-Men fans you and I are, what was your reaction to that Wolverine suit in Deadpool 3?
Oh, the classic suit.
Yeah, the
Bro,
reveal of that
suit.
suit.
So excited,
dude.
Yes,
I'm like,
so
yes.
excited. Yes,
that's just that is the most like that's one of the most like comic accurate suits I've ever seen. For what he even has the like bumps where the claws come out.
Yeah, man. I mean, here's a question: do you think they should bring back Hugh Jackman to play Wolverine in the MCU
permanently? I mean, would they? Would he come back though?
I mean, I think he would, but I do not think they should bring back Hugh Jackman.
No, I think this is cool for like a fun little nod, but bring someone else in at this point.
Yeah, somebody who can play him longer. Because I think one of the big issues that people have, because like I was talking about this with fans when they were talking about like Blue Marvel, right? Like Adam Brashear, and they were like Denzel Washington should play Adam Brashear, and I'm like, why? He's old, so like you get like 10 years out of him at most.
Michael B. Jordan,
right? Like. Well, we played Killmonger. My vote was John David Washington, the son of Denzel Washington.
I could see him playing him.
Yeah, I was like, he should play Adam Brashear. And people were like, no, it should be Denzel Washington. It's like, but he's too old and he won't be able to play the character too long. And they're like, but Denzel Washington though. And it's like, but I mean, he won't be able to play him long term. Yeah, but like Denzel Washington. And like, that's literally what it turned into.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just like, no, like John David Washington, the son of Denzel, like he should play Adam Brashear.
I could see that. I think he'd do a great job. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I just say that to say, like, I mean, sure, I think that, you know, Hugh Jackman played Wolverine for like 17 years. He had his time. It was cool. I think I would love to see him return. You know, I do agree with the director of Logan that bringing him back kind of, I wouldn't say disrespects, but almost kind of like throws away everything he did with Logan, because Logan was supposed to be like the send-off, like the final farewell.
True.
Wolverine's done. This is the end of his character. You're never going to see him again. And it kind of throws all that away, right? Was it James Mangold? I think he was. No, who was? Yeah, James Mangold. He's the one that did Logan. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think so.
Yeah, but I certainly get where that argument's coming from. I mean, obviously, I think Wolverine coming back is exactly what I said it would be a year and a half ago, where it's Deadpool kills the Fox universe.
Yeah, it's basically that.
Yeah, but it's cool, right? It's gonna be cool.
So,
but yeah, the costume I'm down for.
Yeah, I love that. Dual Legend has a question for you and Rob. What comics do you suggest starting to read that are out now to someone wanting to get into comics?
Ooh, I will let you take this one first.
I would say take any team book first. But the way I always say to get into comics is start with a team book, because I consider that a sampling of all the different characters. Because what I did, I started with Justice League, and I was like, okay, I like Superman, I like Batman, I like Wonder Woman, and then I went and pursued their solo titles, and that's generally how I went with that. But honestly, you could start in any Dawn of DC book for the characters that you like and just be fine with it, because I think they're doing a great job with like the Dawn of DC Superman.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. Dawn of DC is cool so far. It's kind of weird because they did Dawn of DC and they were like, all right, are you guys enjoying Dawn of DC? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. I wish you were doing it like Rebirth where you were releasing more stories. Okay, cool. We're gonna stop.
I know.
Night Terrors. And it's like, but why though? Like it's
like, I was flipping through Superman and it says this will be continued after Night Terrors. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
I was really engrossed.
Yeah, like it was so good. It's just it just destroys the pacing of what was going on with the stories. It kind of irritated me. But I mean, yeah, the question I always ask in response to that is, what kind of characters do you like?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly that point.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Batman, obviously it's New 52. You read Scott Snyder's run. You can read Tom King's run if you want to, if for no other reason to be part of the conversation of like everybody who craps all over the wedding not happening
Batman.
and so on. No, it's not terrible. I mean, it was cool.
There were some parts I didn't like, but overall, I think a lot of it was really cool.
Yeah, top to bottom, it's a strong run. I didn't like what he did when he didn't do the wedding. It was like, Catwoman.
Yeah,
like,
that was
actually
mean.
We shouldn't get married because like you just can't give up being Batman. It's like, but like he wants to marry you though. Yeah, but I mean, like Batman though, and so it's like okay, like that I wasn't the biggest fan of. I think it would have been cool to have them get married. And if you really want to make it tragic, Catwoman gets killed when Bane takes over. Like that would have been interesting. But like there was some cool stuff with Tom King's Batman run. I will say I did love the way he introduced Gotham and Gotham Girl.
Yes, that was cool.
That was amazing. And I absolutely love that. I don't know how I feel about him going in the direction that like oh my god. What was his name, man? The one who was manipulating him with Medusa's mask.
Psycho Pirate?
Yeah, Psycho Pirate. I don't know how I feel about about him coming in and just being like, actually, Psycho Pirate manipulated them at the direction of Bane. I don't know how I feel about that. But I did love the way he introduced those characters. I think it was smart to kill off Gotham relatively fast, and then just have Gotham Girl kind of become a mainstay. I don't know what they ever did to her. If they like shuffled her off to like Batman Incorporated, or if they killed her off.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened with her. But top to bottom, it's not a bad run. I love the way he handled Flashpoint Batman. That was
That's interesting.
The only thing I wasn't the biggest fan of is I felt like the way the button was done, that where like Flashpoint Batman was like, what happens to the Waynes when we fall, right? We rise. And he's like running into his own death, and like I like when Dr. Manhattan is wiping out his universe or whatever. That was cool. And I feel like that would have just been the end of Flashpoint Batman. Like you never see or hear from him again. Like that would have been cool. Having said that, even when he brought him back, it's I wasn't the biggest fan of the story, but I did like the way he handled how like hardcore Batman is, or Flashpoint Batman is. One thing that I did love, that I absolutely adored, and I still think it's the best moment from Tom King's Batman, is when he fights KG Beast and kills him out in the snow.
Yeah,
that was amazing. That was an amazing
kills.
Moment. Okay, like as much as Batman can kill, but like basically leaves the guy for dead. Like,
here's the thing. I always say this. I'm like, Batman doesn't kill, so he'll cripple them essentially. So I'm like,
yeah. You'll spend the rest of your life communicating through a machine, drinking your food through a straw.
Yeah,
but at least you're not dead.
He won't kill you. Or it's like Batman's anti-gun. Then how come he straps cannons to his Batmobile, plane, car, bike, and all that stuff? I'm like, there are certain parts where I'm like, is Batman a hypocrite?
Yeah. Oh, the worst hypocrite.
Yes, he is. Thank you.
Yes, but I did love that whole fight between the two of them.
That was cool. I love that. Yeah. Considering that's not the first time Batman has left KG Beast to die.
He left him in a room and then like
he walled him up.
Dude, the funny thing, okay, so the funniest thing about that story, so yeah, he locks him in a room and seals it up. Right. So it's like, okay, so this guy's obviously going to die from like asphyxiation or dehydration or starvation, any number of things, right? To just go crazy and off himself. But then like later on, it's like, actually, he told Jim Gordon what he did. So they went and got him out. And it's like, no, just say he left him in a room to die. Right. Like, I mean, it's I would say like in 100 years, sure, let's let Batman just kill a guy twice. Right. Like, it's okay. Like, I mean, just let it happen. But yeah, it was.
I've always said, I actually did a video about this. I said, okay, at this point, I know why he'll never kill the Joker, because really it's because the Joker prints money. But realistically, in the universe, I still can't believe the Joker has not been killed once, because of like He's basically filled graveyards. He's paralyzed and maybe violated Barbara Gordon. He's like,
I mean, I don't even know if there's a maybe. Like, it's heavily insinuated.
and plus, in
Yeah.
when they did back about the Bat label before Damned basically tanked it, they were going to release like the complete version of the Killing Joke. It was supposed to show him with Barbara Gordon.
No way.
Yeah, and I was like, and obviously when Batman's penis came out, that didn't work out so well.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well. Yeah, they ended up axing that, but
yeah, but I'm like, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, that would have been nuts. But no, it's yeah. So I guess to kind of get back on track,
yeah.
If you're talking about Batman, obviously Scott Snyder's New 52
Yeah.
Batman run, that's the definitive Batman run for like
I love it so
really
much.
since 2011. And I would say, honestly, man, with the exception of maybe Dark Knight Returns, year one, I would say the first 15 issues of Tales of the Dark Knight. Scott Snyder's Black Mirror running all the way through his New 52 run is probably the best the Batman's been since probably the Neil Adams, Dennis O'Neil runs.
Yeah, I agree with you on that
Grant
one.
Morrison's is good. Grant Morrison's is awesome, but his is like overly complex at the same time. Scott Snyder's is just very simple and easy to follow and a really fun read.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested, I mean, obviously, if you're interested in Green Lantern, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, but there are a couple things to know before going into that. One, I think it was Joe Kelly who wrote the story that explained how the Guardians of the Universe came back. And there's a fill-in story because you have Emerald Twilight where he destroys the Central Battery Core, he kills all the Green Lanterns, he wipes out all the Guardians of the Universe except Ganthet, who gives the ring to Kyle Rayner and then dies. And then like it's Kyle Rayner's story for a while. He becomes Ion, that kind of thing. Then there's like a filler story in there, and I can't remember what it is, but it's like a filler story that explains everything that kicks off Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run. Otherwise, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. But like it's like God, I'll have to look it up at some point. But it's like a filler story. I'm pretty sure I covered it in the Green Lantern stories. But it's like absolutely essential. But it's a story that nobody knows about because it makes sense out of everything else.
I agree on that one.
Yeah.
I've always felt that Jeff Johns' Green Lantern is the closest DC has to actually Star Wars.
Yeah, I want to say it's the story that explains how the Green, because if I remember correctly, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern Rebirth kicks off. Hal Jordan's back; he's no longer the Spectre, but all the Green Lanterns and the Guardians of the Universe are there.
Yes,
and I don't think it's explained in the story how they came back. But
no, I think he was the Spectre still in like the first issue of Green Lantern Rebirth. Kyle was there, and I believe Kyle. Well, Guy Gardner was a warrior at that point.
Yeah.
You have John Stewart. Kilowog was alive, and
well, he was alive in like a spiritual kind of form where he didn't have like a physical form.
Okay.
In this particular story, like his essence, survived. Yeah, God, I cannot remember what it is. I'm not talking about the Kyle Rayner Ion story. That's not the one that I'm talking about. That one's in the main Kyle Rayner Green Lantern run. That's not a filler story. That's like a major story arc for his character. But
Damon says it's issue 181. It's when Kyle brought back the Guardians.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, yes. Thank you. Okay, yes. Was that Joe Kelly who wrote that? I don't remember exactly who it was.
I don't know.
You know what? Let's look it up.
All right.
I know there was a Joe Kelly Green Lantern story that tied into that in some way. Green Lantern 181. No, that's not it.
It says
it looks like it was Ron Mars actually.
Okay.
Ron Mars was the guy who was writing quote unquote the cosmic stuff.
Okay, that makes sense.
Back then. Yeah. I want to say there was a Joe Kelly. Hold on a second. Joe Kelly Green Lantern. The Last Will and Testament of Hal Jordan. That's
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was awesome.
Yes, that's what it was. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Continue on.
And then
I needed to make sure that I was right. I was like, I know there's a Joe Kelly Green Lantern story. I know there was. Okay, cool. Awesome.
All right. Now, let me ask you this real quick. What'd you think of what DC has done to Jon Kent? in terms of from the age up to the whole Injustice universe thing they're doing.
I like how they're handling him with Injustice and with him like having this power and trying to figure out what his role is in the bigger picture. I didn't like them aging him up because I felt like they just kind of ripped him out of Super Sons.
Yeah,
and just
did.
aged him up.
And you know, Tavia's gonna be really happy to hear that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Super Sons. Like I adored. Super
It was a
Sons.
cool idea. I enjoyed it.
It was a great. It was the most fun comic that DC had going at that point in time. It's why I never agreed that Brian Michael Bendis should be writing anything related to Superman.
No.
Usually Bendis sucks when it comes to writing adults. He's amazing when it comes to writing kids. Right, he's phenomenal when it comes to writing kids.
Or he's more skilled, I think, at street level characters. Like I think he could have written a pretty decent Batman.
Yeah. I mean, Batman's a little finicky, and you got to be really careful about how you handle it, because the problem is his Batman run would have come off of Scott Snyder and around the time that Tom King was finishing his Batman run. That's true. And so people would have been like, you better have something good. So I could definitely see why he shied away from Batman, because that's a lot of pressure. But honestly, I think that Thierry and Dan Jurgens' Superman Rebirth was very underrated. And I think that's why a lot of it was. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of it wasn't getting anywhere near as much attention as like Batman was. And so I think that's why a lot of people, that's why DC was kind of like, sure, you can write Superman. Plus, like, it's Superman. So I could see why he did it. But if I'm being honest with you, man, when Bendis came over to DC, he should have written like Teen Titans, or he should have written like Shazam.
Well, he did Young Justice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, like younger groups like that were good.
The other issue they did,
Dial H for Hero, which is pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, it's younger stories with younger people. That's what Bendis is good at.
The other thing that they did, which I felt was a mistake, is giving him Superman and action, as opposed to like what I would have liked, what they would have done if they really wanted to give Bendis Superman. Give him Superman, but give like someone else action, or vice versa. Give the fans who don't like what Bendis is doing an escape.
See, that was the beautiful thing about the way they handle it in Rebirth. Now, it just happened to turn out that between Thierry and Dan Jurgens, both of them were great. Which, by the way, I feel like DC Rebirth, that was Dan Jurgens' Superman redemption story. Because up until that point, everybody was like, yeah, remember when Dan Jurgens wrote The Death of Superman and the story was awful? And it's just like, yeah, I remember that.
Well, wasn't the death, it was the return that I think.
No, the Death of Superman was a rough story, because they kept trying to like force Maxima on everybody.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
We got like the crappy Justice League.
Yes, the one that tried to fight Doomsday.
Yeah, and got like freaking demolished. Right, yeah. So I mean, it's like people look at the Dan Jurgens Superman run, and it's like, But then you get to Rebirth, and he does like Action Comics Rebirth, and it's just like, this is dope. Like this is amazing. Yeah, Dan Jurgens' Action Comics Rebirth was absolutely his Superman redemption story, because that was the best Superman had been in decades. Right, between those two runs, it was phenomenal. So I agree with you on that. They should have given him either Superman or Action, but not both, because he tanked them both.
Yeah, he did. That's the sad part. And the sad part is that Bendis is not a bad writer. It's just there's just certain ideas. So Joey Padilla has a question. What are your honest thoughts on the Cohen era of X-Men?
I like it, man. Honestly, I really like it. It's a great change of pace. It reminds me a lot of the Utopia and like what is it? Oh my God, Ex Necrotia era, like from the mid 2000s. Like I still say to
where they were on an island in California.
Yeah, they were off the coast of San Francisco. Like I think it was like the governor or the mayor granted them like sanctuary. Yeah, so they weren't like impacted by dark rain or anything like that. But I don't have a camera connected, guys. That's why the camera's off. All right. But yeah, I still say to this day, like mid 2000s X-Men is the best X-Men, and I think it's better than Chris Claremont's X-Men run. There's just like that era.
I wish Hickman had been able to do everything he wanted to do, because again, I go back to House of X Powers of 10 being one of my favorite Marvel events of all time. Because first off, I just love Hickman. That's the writer. I think that I would love to do to read a Hickman Justice League run.
Okay, so when we were in San Diego one year, me, Benny, and Sal were hanging out. I think it was last year or the year before. We were hanging out. We ran into Hickman. Okay. Over at San Diego. So we're just sitting there. We're just like hanging out with him, right, shooting the shit with him, talking with him and everything. And I was like, dude, when are you going to write for DC? And he was just like, I mean, at the moment, he's like, I may end up going back to Marvel. And I was like, dude, because I'll tell you right now, man, a Jonathan Hickman Legion of Superheroes or a Jonathan Hickman Shazam would be insane.
I could see that.
A Justice League, maybe. I mean, it would be good, but honestly,
it's because he really makes you feel like you're reading a story of the gods.
Yes, yeah, it would just bring this. Speaking of which, dude, are you following what Marvel's doing with gods?
No, I'm not,
bro. Okay, so Hickman's doing Ultimate Invasion. It's cool for what it is. Whatever, he's bringing back the Ultimate Universe. So in November, Marvel's launching a series called Gods.
I heard about that.
Where Hickman is revamping the entirety of the Marvel cosmology.
Oh, yes.
The multiverse, all that kind of stuff. And like in all these different comics, they have like these little backup stories. Like one of the things that we just learned, I want to say it was an Uncanny Avengers, the first issue in the miniseries during Fall of X. Somebody is like smuggling cosmic cubes in like corpses. Like they're smuggling cosmic cubes onto Earth. Because like, there's a point where it's like they're doing like an autopsy and they find like 7 or 8 cosmic cubes. And so I mean, dude, it's I have no idea what he's doing, man, but it's gonna be crazy. And I'm here for it, man. I am here for it.
All you got to do is put Hickman's name on a book, and I'm there.
And I will read it. Yeah, I'll read anything this guy writes. Yeah.
Yes.
It's nuts.
Because I love the writers that play the long game, because it's like with his Avengers run, his I almost said Justice League, with his X-Men run, it's like if you read all the issues and then you start like catch all the little details, and then when you get to the end of the story, it's like, oh my gosh, that was awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it takes forever to get to the point. It's a slow burn, but the payoff is always
really good.
Always worth it.
Saul asks, do you have faith in the current MCU to make a proper X-Men movie?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest issue the MCU has at the moment is they focus too much on quantity over quality. They were like, let's just get stuff out. And I think we're seeing the result of that.
Yeah, I could see that. Tevia asks, what did you think of Naomi?
I did not read it.
Me either. My issue with it is that here's another Bendis thing. So when he came into Justice League, he tried to force her onto the Justice League, and I'm like, she would work better if you kept her on the Teen Titans or Young Justice or something like that. But
yeah, because she was a younger character, wasn't she?
Yeah, I'm like, on the Justice League,
or give her own solo series and just see where it goes from there.
Just do that. You're Bendis. They're not going to tell you no.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't read her time on the Justice League, so I don't remember if it's good or not. So.
The only reason why I have the first issue, I have 3 variant covers of it, is because when they did the variant covers for the Snyder Cut, I got 3 of them.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Yeah, I have them framed on my wall, so there you go. I also have all 4 of X-Men #1 by Claremont and Lee, but as the poster, and one of them is signed by Claremont.
Dude, okay. So I have those 4 variant covers. You want to hear a crazy story about Jimmy? Okay. So I have X-Men #1, like the OG X-Men #1.
Yeah.
Like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I got that, and I roll into Denver Fan Expo. And I'm just like, I want Jim Lee to autograph this. Because to me, he's like the definitive X-Men artist.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm like, I want Jim Lee's autograph on this thing. So I walk up there with X-Men #1. You ever got an autograph from Jim Lee?
I almost did.
Okay. It's a super seamless process. You scan a QR code, you tell them what you want, and then you buy it. They give you a ticket, and then you go up to the booth where he's at. So I get up there where Jim Lee's at. And I want to say, I think it's like his wife that's there. And I'm just like, I hand her the comic, and she kind of looks at me like, bro, are you sure about this? Right. And so like another guy comes over, and he's just like the same thing. And then like a third guy comes over, and it's like, you're never going to CGC this or anything. And I was like, no, like I'm never going to CGC this or anything. This is personal to me. So I hand it to Jim Lee, and like this guy just kind of looks at it for a second. And he's like, I remember reading this comic when I was a little kid. And for like 10 minutes, I'm just watching Jim Lee just like relive his childhood.
That is so cool.
Like with this comic in his hand. And he's like, I remember when Chris Claremont first started writing the X-Men, and I remember reading the Phoenix Saga, and like I'd race to the store and buy them all the time. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had to see this guy whose art got me into the X-Men. In turn, like me being able to provide him with a moment for like 10 minutes when he's just reliving his entire childhood. And then he signs it. And I was just like, this comic's priceless to me. Every comic book collector in the world would probably look at that and be like, you just destroyed a $10,000 comic book. And it's like, I don't really care. Like, it to me, it's priceless. And it just sits on a shelf in my basement in a display case alongside all the other comics that I have. When I had Joshua Williamson autograph, the first appearance of Eobard Thawne, what is it? X4 or X Factor number 5, number 4, number 5, the first appearance of Apocalypse, X-Force 1, all the X-Men Volume 2, issue number 1s, New Mutants, like all it sits down there with all those comics, because to me, it's priceless. It's X-Men number 1 autographed to me by Jim Lee. Like, that
is so cool.
Yeah, it's a priceless comic book.
With me, so I was going to Florida SuperCon, and I was supposed to they have one of those things where it's a whole experience. You can show up, he'll sign some stuff, and you'll like watch him draw some stuff. So shortly thereafter, he had to cancel because he got COVID, but he still signed a bunch of posters. So I have the signed Batman and Catwoman poster that's signed by Jim Lee right there.
No way.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I'll take that.
Dude,
and it's a variant cover from Tom King's Batcat with her like upside down kissing him with his like Christmas balls around him.
Oh, like the Bat and the Cat? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. There was this one time I was in line to get an autograph from Jason Aaron. I don't remember what it was, but so we got to the booth for Jason Aaron like right when it opened, because we knew that like his booth was going to be crazy. It was going to be insane, right? It was the same thing with Hickman when I went to go meet Hickman. Like, I got there super early because I knew the booth was going to be nuts, right? So like I'm just kind of waiting in line. There's like I think 7 or 8 of us there, and Jason Aaron walks up and he's like, "Okay, I got to drop some stuff off, but I mean, you guys, I can do autographs for you guys before I head out." So we're like, "Cool." So like we're in this line, and then there's this guy who's got a copy of the Mighty Thor number 1, where Jane Foster is like, she's full on Thor, you know, like she gets her own solo series. And then he proceeds to insult it. He was like, I don't really like your Jane Foster Thor run. I think you just handled it poorly, that kind of stuff. He's just like lambasting it. Then he hands him the comic to sign, and Jason Aaron like looks down at the comic, and he looks at him, and he's like, "I've actually got to run," and then just leaves. And I was like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, I'm like
you sit there and you insult a writer.
Just sign just have him sign the book and leave. You don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, like, what kind of a dickhead insults a comic book writer's work and then expects him to sign the comic book that he just insulted?
Or how about this?
Bruh.
If you didn't bring a book that you actually liked or enjoyed,
I was like, dude, don't be an idiot, man. Like,
if it's like with me, I would bring in like Heroes Reborn, where he basically turned the Marvel universe into the DC universe, because I actually enjoyed that. Yeah. Or it's like I would bring in the volume where you introduce Gore the God Butcher. I'm like, bring in stories you like.
You have the whole of Jason Aaron's Thor run, which is probably the greatest Thor run there's ever been.
It's one of the best ones. I'll give you that.
And then you're going to bring in the one comic you hate and insult him for writing.
What do you think is? Yeah, I'm like, he's under no obligation to sign your comic. He's doing it out of a service to you.
Yeah, exact. Yeah,
it's annoying. I really hate it when that happens, because there are some parts of Jason Aaron's writing that I don't like Punisher, or on where the whole Thor thing. That period of Thor was not my favorite, but there's more that I do like.
Yeah.
Plus, why are you getting a book you hate signed? That's my first question right there.
I mean, one of the funniest things was going to a Comic-Con, and Benny got all nervous because he was going to meet Neil Adams.
Okay.
And so he was like we got to it, because if you've ever been to a Comic-Con and you saw like a Neil Adams booth, it's just like this gigantic Batman booth. And it's just like all these omnibus of like him and Dennis O'Neil's Batman run. And so I was like, "Oh shit, dude!" I was like, "It's Neil Adams, man. Let's go get an autograph." He was like, "But dude, it's Neil Adams," and he's like visibly nervous. And I was like, "No, man, let's go talk to him." So like, I just go and talk to Neil Adams, right? And he's just like saying like 2 or 3 words at a time. He eventually warmed up and was like, "Yeah, man," like he was all super excited to meet him and everything. But like it's Benny never gets nervous, so it's funny to see like the 1 or 2 times when he does. It was hilarious.
I'll tell you a really weird signing story. So 2019 they did what was called Outpost Discovery. It was essentially a convention for all things Halo, and
no way, that would be dope.
It was, and they made it like it was in universe, dude. Like they have Spartans walking around. It's so cool. So anyway, So I'm in line to get that helmet signed by the voice actor who plays the Master Chief, Steve Downs.
Oh, the one up on the top of the shelf?
Yeah, and the
Dude, I love
sword.
that. Yeah.
So the line ends at me. And then it turns out he's doing a signing later with the voice actress who plays Cortana. So I'm like, okay, I'll wait till later. Then but the way they did it is that there was a lottery. So you had to grab your ticket and wait from the call it. Then, so what's kind of funny is they called my dad because obviously he's not a Halo fan, but he grabbed the ticket, so technically I could get stuff signed. So they called his ticket, and I'm like, so we're like this whole my first failed attempt at getting his autograph led to me getting both of their autographs.
No way.
And I'm like, so I got those two signed and two like exclusive Funko Pop signed.
Dude, that's amazing.
It was just the most like small world crazy as hell story ever.
Yeah, that is so cool. Dude, I love hearing stories like that, man. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. And so now Tevia asked the question he always asks us: if you were in charge of DC, how would you DH Jon Kent?
I wouldn't.
Okay, there you go. That's a good question. Why wouldn't you DH him?
Because I like the direction they're going in with the story at the moment.
Okay, I can see that.
I like what they're doing with this story. I like it's good because they actually gave him a direction. The problem was like when Bendis aged him up, it was like he has no idea what he wants to do with Jonathan Kent. You know, it's like he's gonna hang out with his granddad for a little while and then like whatever, you know. But like it was Tevi, you have no idea what you're talking about. The story is absolutely great. Or the direction is absolutely great. Like it's cool.
We know Tevia, he only wants him to be as a kid, which that's fine if you like your own version. By the way, I love where you first connect with us because you're like, man, Tevia's everywhere.
Oh yeah, dude, Tevia's all over the place. Yeah,
it's kind of funny to tell you behind the scenes. It's like when you popped up, me and Talati are looking at each other like, is that really him?
Yeah.
Because that was like the most random thing in the world, and we're like, "Oh,
that
God."
That happens like 99% of the time. Because like what I like, because I love doing that. Like I love going onto YouTube and just seeing like what comic book YouTubers are streaming, and then just like jump into their chat and just be like, "What's up, guys?"
Yeah,
right, and just be like it's cool because I love getting to know other members of the comic book community on YouTube.
Right? And honestly, dude, it's been awesome having you on the channel because again, a lot of this channel owes its success to your content because I go to your stuff a lot for like if I need to understand a story, I'll go to you for a lot of stuff.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's fun having been a part of the scene for so long, but yeah, it's cool just seeing different members. I mean, it's not often that I don't know what's going on in the comic book scene, but it is cool to like you actually talk directly to other creators. Now watch, I'm gonna get like all these emails from like all these different comic book YouTubers. Hey man, you want to come on my podcast? Like it's gonna be wild.
That's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. Yeah. But I think it's a good place to call a show. Robert, was a pleasure having you on, dude. You're always welcome to come back on.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it, man.
Anytime. So in case anyone somehow lives under a rock, where can one find you and what content have you got coming on the channel?
Oh yeah, so Comics Explained here on YouTube, and I have a schedule, but I don't remember what it is. But we're basically just covering like Fall of X from the X-Men, which is exciting. Yeah, dude, I'm loving Fall of X right now. So yeah, if you want to see how all the X-Men die, I'm covering those videos.
I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited. So stay heroic, everyone, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.